All right, so we left North Point and we just literally drove, I don't know, 50 yards up into the shopping center we're in right now. There's a buy low grocery store. You've got shops and restaurants back here. And this ties into New Parrish Village, which was another Syntex development that was built right at the height of the real estate boom last time. So these houses date from 06 to 08. It's a very small neighborhood. I think some of the benefit to this is obviously being able to walk to commercial, so you have good access to that. It's about 21 homes back here, so not a lot of things to keep up. The homeowners association is pretty minimal. I think there's just a common little lake area. No pool, no fitness center, none of those things that you would see in a bigger neighborhood. But again, walking distance to Coleman Boulevard, and you could be at the beach in 5 minutes or so. They have, I think, a community little lake area back through there. Again, Syntex built these. They built them during the boom, which if you bought something during the boom, you didn't see finish levels that great. I mean, these were finished off all right, but nothing to the degree of what you would see, 2007, 08, something that was built after the economy crashed and the housing market crashed. Syntex started putting more into the houses. These have rented a lot. A lot of the people I know that own these rent these out, and they get top dollar for them simply because they're in a good school district and they're close to everything. Coming out of New Parrish Village, and we're turning on the Rifle Range Road. This will point us back towards the old Mount Pleasant. But before we get back to Coleman Boulevard, we're going to hop into Phillips Park. And Phillips Park is a community that was built in the mid-2000s. They started with these two buildings right here that have 3 units each in them. And these were townhomes. So you have these townhomes that are really finished well. I mean, they have Viking and Sub-Zero appliances. They were built and then everything stopped. The economy fell apart. And I think they built one house in 06 back here, and then it went through bankruptcy. Came out of bankruptcy, and then a small mom and pop builder bought this tract of land and developed these houses. I have some clients that live back here that have retired, and they're from Washington, D.C., and they have really enjoyed being here. They go to the gym that I go to in downtown Charleston, and he says he can be in downtown Charleston in about 6 or 7 minutes, depending on traffic on Coleman Boulevard. So there's 17 houses back here, 17 single-family houses, and you're in a good school district. There are some kids back here, but at least from the clients of mine that live back here now, tell me it's a little bit of an older crowd that lives back in Phillips Park. From Phillips Park, we're going to go into Remington Forest. And Remington Forest is another one of those apartment complexes, or was an apartment complex when I moved to Mount Pleasant years ago. And it was turned into condominiums back during the boom in 2006. And these were completely redone. So, they weren't condoed off like I, mentioned in other videos. Sometimes you get the condominiums and they just sell them off and they need a ton of work. These were actually bought and they did a bunch of work to them at that time. So these are in pretty good shape. The regime, which is basically where you're paying in group with other people for insurance and for common area upkeep, is in pretty good shape at last time of checking on this. These do not have garages, so you're going to have parking. These again were apartments at one time, so this is kind of the way it was set up. But the price points on these anywhere, you get a 2-bedroom for probably, at least again shooting in this video, about $170,000. They do have a small pool back here, which again, with it being an apartment complex years ago, that was, kind of part of what they did with apartment complexes. But, not a very big pool. I don't think you're gonna swim laps in it, but you can cool off during the heat of the summer. And you've got a small playground area. People that want to be in Mount Pleasant and, can't afford to buy something in Mount Pleasant or don't want to pay over the top rent. These rent for probably $1,500 to $1,700 a month, which I guess is expensive, but not compared to some other things in Mount Pleasant. So you're about 4 minutes from Sullivan's Island and about the same distance to Interstate 526. All right, so we're heading back down Rifle Range Road, and you can see over to our left, I mean, this was a pretty beat up area. Some old houses, even a couple of trailers. Somebody has bought that and they're getting ready to redevelop it. So this area through here is, you're seeing a lot of people buy up a lot of these older places and rebuild communities. Harbor Gate Shores, which is what we're going into right now, is about 270 homes. So this is right across the street from Old Mount Pleasant. So you've got, good location, kind of a loose homeowners association. So, if you want to keep a boat in your yard, nobody's going to say you can't. These houses were built between 1973 and 87 or so. Majority of the homes are brick veneer, some of them are vinyl siding. A good location, but this is one of these neighborhoods that's older, that's close enough to the coast that you want to be cautious about flood insurance. And I know I keep saying that in these videos, but I think part of the reason I'm shooting these videos is if you're not from here, I want you to understand how these neighborhoods set up and the things that you honestly should be looking out for as you work through the process of buying a house here. Square footage range on these houses anywhere from probably 1,200 to 2,500 square feet. So some of them are on the fairly big size, and then you've got some smaller houses. A lot of what you saw back here was people buying these houses and redoing them, over the last couple of years. So the neighborhood, again, it's the time of year we're shooting, it's a lot of leaves on the ground. It's not as pretty as this is in the spring, but if you want to be in Mount Pleasant and you don't want to be all the way up in North Mount Pleasant and you want, like I said, loose homeowners association, Harbor Gate Shores is definitely a place you'd want to consider. All right, y'all, so we're continuing up Rifle Range Road. And again, the goal of these videos is to kind of get all these neighborhoods. So if some of these neighborhoods look the same, they were just built in the same time. Where we are right now is Chelsea Park, a neighborhood of about 114 homes. Built between 1987 and I think the last house built back here was probably 1996. And some properties in this neighborhood back up to a pond. One thing to keep in mind is we're right off of Rifle Range Road, and Rifle Range Road is a fairly busy road. It's fine to live off of it, but some of these houses are going to back up to Rifle Range Road. So if you're, if you're looking online and you're trying to figure out if this is the place you want to be, I always recommend dropping the address in and looking at Google Earth and making sure that it doesn't back up to Rifle Range Road, because I think it would be a detraction when you got ready to resell it. Again, close to the beaches in downtown Charleston. The architecture is nothing too exciting, I don't think. I mean, these houses, again, were built in the 80s, and a lot of architecture from the 80s, at least around here, was fairly uninspired, and it looks a lot, all of them look the same for the most part. But again, great location. As we head out of this neighborhood, which is, again, Chelsea Park, we're going to go into a brand new neighborhood called Scotts Creek, which is right across the street. Okay, coming out of Chelsea Park, back onto Rifle Range Road, and we're gonna go into Scotts Creek. Scotts Creek is a Pulte subdivision, and Pulte is just a national builder. Syntex and Pulte are kind of the same thing. They're the same company. And Scotts Creek, originally the Beach Company, which is a long-time Charleston real estate company and development company, owned this. And they were going to make this very much like Old Park, not to be confused with the Old Village, but Old Park is over by Ion, and we've ridden through that in the past. These are fairly big-sized lots for Mount Pleasant, and before the economy crashed, these lots were selling for anywhere from the least expensive lot, probably $375, on up to $500,000 for a piece of land. Everything fell apart. The Beach Company decided to bring somebody in here to finish this off, and they bought in Pulte Homes, and they built everything that we're going to ride through here in the next couple of minutes, you'll see. And they're still building houses back here. We looked at buying back here, and I guess that's probably been 4 years ago. And the one thing my wife didn't like, and some people don't like, is the front load garages. You would have thought with the extra space that they have with these lots, they could have done side load garages. But I think that's the only negative. The spec sheets on these houses are actually finished pretty well. Again, Pulte is a production builder, so they do a price range of houses. But these houses are selling in the 7s right now, in the 6s and 7s, which is not a entry-level price point in most cases. Again, I like Scotts Creek from a location standpoint. About 70 houses back here. You have a crabbing dock, a neighborhood crabbing dock, and that's really about the only amenity. You have some walking trails that go through here for people that live back here. Then you have a walking trail that goes out to a dock where you can crab and you can fish, and you can look at the backside of Isle of Palms or Sullivan's Island. So we're gonna roll through here, and again, you can look at these houses. Some of them are built with a Charleston architecture look to them, and some of them are built like houses you probably see in a lot of places in the United States. Brick and hardy planks, no vinyl back here. And from here, we're going to head over to a older subdivision called Oakhaven. We've come off Rifle Range Road. We're heading back into Oakhaven Plantation. Oakhaven is a older neighborhood built in probably the late 80s to early 90s. About 230 or so houses. Some of the houses over to the right side as you come into the neighborhood are going to be less expensive than the ones on the left, as they're bigger homes. I mean, Oakhaven has different subsections, and a subsection is basically a neighborhood inside a neighborhood. People that end up here like this location because of its proximity to Charleston. You can be on I-526 in a couple of minutes. You do have a pool, amenity center, and tennis courts back here, so you've got some things I think that will draw people in, and I've talked about it before. Just simply having an amenity center I think is important, even if you don't plan on using it, because it's just most people want something like that, whether they have kids or they want to go somewhere where they are able to go and socialize. So I think it's important to consider that into things. One thing I talk about a lot is we're very close to the coast right where we are. We're maybe 2 miles from Sullivan's Island, 3 miles from Sullivan's Island, is that some of these older neighborhoods are going to be in flood zones that could be tricky. And keeping in mind that some of these houses back in Oakhaven are in V, as in high velocity flood zones. A lot of them are in AE, like Apple Air flood zones, so your flood insurance would be very minimal. But it's definitely something you want to keep in mind. And as I've mentioned before, if there are a house that you see online you'd like and you want to know what the flood insurance is before you fall in love with it, you can email us, you can call us, and we will be able to get that information to you pretty easily. Great little neighborhood, good trees. The houses are a little bit older. A lot of them have been redone over the last couple of years, so I think you could, if you don't want, a lot of times people don't want older construction because they don't want to have to go in and do things to them. A lot of these houses have been redone here recently, so you shouldn't have a whole lot of maintenance to do. I will say though that the ones that are not brick are in most cases wood siding, so you're not going to get the benefit of hardy plank, which is much better for keeping something that's not going to rot over time. All right, so we're heading up Rifle Range Road. We're going north, so the Isle of Palms connector's above us, Old Mount Pleasant is behind us, and we're going into a neighborhood that I like. It's called Shell Point, and these are homes that were built in probably mid-2000s to late 2000s, even a couple of houses still being built back here now. Primo location. Again, you're watching this, you're probably not from here, and you're probably wondering, why is it such a great location? Beach, back of the town center, which is a giant shopping complex, and you can get on 526 super easy from here. So there's a lot of inroads to get into Shell Point. Shell Point's about 100 or so houses, and a lot of the ones over to the right back up to a lake. It's a man-made lake, but it's a really pretty lake, and you get, the way the houses are oriented, you get some great sunsets off the lake. These houses were built by various custom builders. The Beach Company of Charleston, I think, originally owned this, and this was their development. And you could have bought lots back here, and so you had different builders come back and build over time. Pretty high quality finish levels on most of these houses. We almost bought one of these houses back in the boom, and I'm kind of glad I didn't now, because it's, it's back up to where it was before the boom, but it said, I think it actually went into foreclosure because it didn't sell for whatever reason. So I like this location. I think if you're looking and you want newer construction and don't want to go all the way up to, North Mount Pleasant and Dunes West and Park West, this is a good place to consider. Price point on these houses is going to be in the $5s on the minimum, and then the ones on the lake are $700,000 to $800,000, some of them $900,000, depending on finish level. Definitely an area I would consider. And again, we're in Shell Point in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Shell Point ties into another neighborhood that I'm very big on, which is Watermark. We're coming through Shell Point. Shell Point ties into Watermark. And Watermark is a mixed-use community that the beach company has been developing. And this is an area that we almost purchased in as well. And I like this, again, all based on location. I think you're not going to find a lot of new construction neighborhoods that are this close in with the amenities that this area has. You have some commercial, and we'll ride by here in a second, but you're literally a bike ride to the town center and a lot more commercial they're developing around here. Very easy to get on I-526. I'd say you're maybe a half a mile from that. So if you're working in other parts of Charleston, this is a neighborhood. I mean, sometimes I've helped Boeing relocation people by here. And there's actually a fair number of people that are retired or buy second homes. It's similar to Ion, at least some of the, it's neoclassical, but it's far less expensive. Houses range back here from the 4s probably to houses on the lake, 750. And some of these also have detached garages, so you have basically 2 structures where you could have a guest house or an office, and then you have the main house. But you probably can see as we're riding through here, they're still building. I believe when I talked to the developer last time, they're probably about 6 to 9 months from being done in here. So it's, they're rolling through here pretty quick. This development, Watermark, kind of sat dormant for a while when the economy fell apart, but now that, over the last several years, it's been built back up and it's sold at a pretty good rate. I think there's maybe 10 or 11 houses that are under contract and maybe more than 3 or 4 that are actually for sale. It's been very well received as it's been being built out. And from here, we're going to go into an older neighborhood across the street. We're almost across the street from Shell Point, and we're right up the street from Oakhaven Plantation, and we're in Cassina Plantation. About 56 houses that were built sporadically from the 1950s to the late 1990s. And these homes reside on much larger lots than you're probably going to find in too many places in Mount Pleasant. I mean, as I ride through here, I don't know that there's too many places that I can think of, especially this close to downtown Charleston, in Mount Pleasant, that have lots this size. Some homes have views of the marsh and intercoastal waterways. There's some lakes back here, nothing that you're going to put a boat on, but I guess ponds. Again, centrally located. But again, a lot of times people approach me and they tell me they don't want to be right on top of their neighbor. And this would be a place that you definitely would not be right on top of your neighbor. Probably very loose homeowners association with only 56 homes. And generally you find with these older neighborhoods, the homeowners association rules are much less stringent than the newer neighborhoods. It seems like if you look at something that's built in the 50s in Mount Pleasant and you read the homeowners association documents, you're talking about maybe a one-page piece of paper that's outlined maybe 3 or 4 points, and you move into a newer neighborhood that was built in the last 10 years and it's 50 pages of what you can and can't do. So I think there's some benefit in buying in a neighborhood that doesn't have overly far-reaching homeowners association, as long as that's what you're looking for, I suppose. Next to Cassina Plantation is Cassina Heights, and Cassina Heights is very similar to Cassina Plantation, but it has some newer homes back here, and some of the lots are not quite as big. And this backs up fully to the intercoastal waterway as we ride by here. And over to our left is Mamie Whiteside School. So brand new school that was built in the last, I guess it was probably 3 years ago that they opened it back up. So, a lot of the kids that live back here ride their bike or walk to school. And many of you who've watched other videos that I've shot, Michael and Holly Bronco, good friends of mine, live back here. And they really like this neighborhood. We've considered buying back here, but it was just the flood insurance, honestly. I think the Broncos' house is in a B flood zone. So that kind of deterred me from buying it back then. And you can see the very back of Cassina Heights is a neighborhood called Daybreak. And Daybreak is where you find the newest construction. These houses were pretty much built all within the last 10 years, and some of them are being built right now. They're brand new. but great vistas off the back of these houses to Isle of Palms. Primo location. You can be pretty much anywhere in Mount Pleasant in this neighborhood, anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes, and you can be in downtown in about 10 minutes, downtown Charleston that is. But I really like this neighborhood, like the location. If you're wanting, again, loose homeowners association rules, this is a good place to consider. And keep in mind that some of these, the older houses and the ones that we're looking at right now as we ride through Daybreak are brand new. They're built well out of the floodplain, but some of the houses in the front of the neighborhood are in flood zones that you at least want to have some sort of idea of that going into, considering looking at any of these houses is that as a backdrop.